Welcome to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Geisel, self-mastery coach and mentor. The mission of Evolve Beyond Limits is simple. Fall in love with your life and change the world in the process. And each episode of this podcast is dedicated to helping you do just that. It's designed to bring you one step closer to an aha moment that could completely transform your life so that you can keep evolving into your fullest potential. The reality is how you show up in the world matters, and I don't want you to waste another second living a life that doesn't light your soul on fire. So let's have some fun. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Geisel, and we are continuing on this week with the chakra series. So really our energy series. And the last thing you heard was we did a little overview about energy, why it's important, why we should really be paying attention to this, what it encompasses. And part of what these energy centers, within our body, I want to go through the 7 of them with you. Now, this is going to be it's going to be a lot of information, but yet it's still only going to scratch the surface. But I do know that this is going to be really, really beneficial. So my goal here is to take you through the basics, give you a few key points about each one, help you understand like when each one is in balance, when it's out of balance, what we should be looking for. Our goal shouldn't be to have like perfect harmony all the time. Okay. Because that is our life experiences and what we're going through on a day-to-day is what's really going to alter how we feel. And this is really to give you another tool that can help you understand yourself at a very deep level. And then you can kind of start to hone in on what is out of whack and then have some tools to bring it back into balance. So I want to go through some of those things, some main points about the different chakras, share some of the archetypes. So an archetype is just a pattern of behavior that's associated with each one. And we're going to talk about that, like depending on whether it's balanced or unbalanced. So are we ready? Let's dive in. The first one that we are going to talk about is the root. And the reason we're going to talk about the root is because it is our first chakra. It's our first energy center that we come to. It is located at the base of our spine. So this is the only one that actually has 2 different locations, depending on whether you are male or female. So, males, this is located in the perineum, and it actually is a very, very sensitive spot for them. Ladies, just so you know. And then for women, it is located in the cervix. So why the root is so important is because it's literally the foundation of our entire system. It's the building block on which all of the other chakras lie. So if this one is out of whack, we really don't have any chance at continuing up into the other ones because we will always get knocked back down to the imbalances of our root chakra. So when you think about our root chakra, it's really about connecting to our physicality. So I want you to think about the connection that you have to your body, the connection that you have to material things, the connection that you have to the earth in general. And that is really what our root chakra is all about. I did this meditation one time and it was so perfect because it was with this polar bear and she is like my scouting animal, but she talked about the fact that we were walking on the ice and it was starting to crack. And really the message that came with this is that we can only walk on a cracked foundation for so long until we fall through. And that is like the importance of this root chakra because this is the function of it's our survival. It's our grounding. It gives us our sense of safety, of organization, of stability, right? So as you can see, all of these things are important. And most of us live our entire life with so many people live their entire life with an imbalanced root chakra because they live in fear. And fear is actually what blocks the root chakra. And so they never get this beautiful feeling of fulfillment and happiness and liberation in their life because they're stuck. They're stuck down here and they just can't seem to feel safe in the life that they have created. I would have to do a whole nother podcast on fear. So I can't go into like all of the reasons to what that is. But what I would say is that the overarching theme here of this particular chakra is trust. Trust in yourself as much as trust in spirit or the divine or God or the universe. A strong root chakra means that you could have every material thing in your life stripped away from you, and you would have no doubt that you could get it back because you trust, one, in yourself and your capabilities and your ability to provide your own safety and create the life that you want to live. But you also trust that whatever divine you believe in is going to deliver for you when you need it. And you really just know that between you, the seen world, and the unseen world, that you have everything it takes to make it through anything. Beautiful, right? Isn't that what we all want, is to have this sense of fearlessness where we're not afraid? And, we really start to think, well, I'll get into that in just a second. So again, this is blocked by fear, because fear is what counteracts our sense of safety. And if you have inappropriate levels of fear, it's a good sign that the first chakra is pretty compromised. And we have to be able to face our fears and start to move through that. So just kind of think about that. If you are constantly, and remembering that worry and control and anxiety are all fear in disguise. So if you are suffering from a lot of that, understand that there's probably some imbalances here in this root chakra that can be looked at and observed, and you can start to shift them. The cool thing is there's a developmental stage to each of these. So with the root chakra, it is between utero and 2 years old. So think about that. You are actually starting to develop this when you are within your mother's womb. So the vibration of your mother when she was pregnant with you absolutely will impact how a fetus is developed and what that development of this chakra is. So consider that. Consider talking to your parents about pregnancy, what was going on during that. This isn't about blame. It's not about blaming them for, our something that we might have an imbalance in, but it's about being able to understand and create a new story, which is one of the biggest things in that we have to look at when we look at our root chakra. So again, the vibration, and like, our parents don't necessarily like to share the negative things that happened, but if there was something that they were going through where they felt unsafe, or they felt like they've always had a money worry or something like that, then that probably was and did impact you and your root chakra. And so it's just something that you get to work through, which is really fun. The addictions, there's usually addictions that are tied to each one of the chakras. And this one is shopping and gambling. Now, let me explain why, because it makes so much sense. We are addicted. We're too attached to things. Okay. This is why we fear a lot of times. We fear because we are so attached to something that we don't want to let it go. We're afraid for it to change. And we see that in relationships. We see that in all kinds of things. Okay. So when you think about the root chakra, we think about our body, we think about money, because that in our society and our culture, money is what we think gives us a sense of security or stability, which is just a story. But it's something that it does make an impact, right? So we have our body, we've got material things, stuff, we're attached. So none of these things are a problem. Money is not a problem. Our body is not a problem. Having material things is not a problem. The problem is the attachment that we have to those things. So in our world, money is a tool. Our body is a tool. Our body is our tool that allows us to carry out our purpose. It's a huge fucking deal, right? But we treat it like the goal, not the tool. Our home, all these material things that we have, our careers, the people around us, they are, it sounds weird to call people tools, but they're tools to help us along our way. But in our society, they have become the goal. And that's the problem that we're seeing. So why is the addictions shopping and gambling? Because when we have an imbalanced root chakra, we almost always have some sort of money issue, fear around money, money mindset stuff, attachment to money, all these different things, right? So gambling totally makes sense. And then also shopping, because we think that having stuff brings us that sense of stability and security that we're looking for. When in reality, nothing outside of ourselves can bring us that sense of stability and security. So that's why shopping becomes a thing. And this is where like a lot of hoarding tends to come from, is because they think that these things bring them stability, and all they're looking for is security and stability and safety. And if you take their stuff away, then they don't feel like they have that. So we tend to seek outside of ourselves. And so we start to get attached to all these things, even people outside of ourselves that we think give us the security and the stability that we're looking for. But that has to come from within you. So that is some of the addictions. The animal that has to do with the root chakra. You know me, I am like obsessed with animals. I'm obsessed with spirit animals and all the things. So the elephant. The elephant is the animal of the root chakra, because when an elephant walks on the earth, it rumbles. They actually feel through the bottom of their feet. Isn't that cool? So they're super connected to the earth. So the elephant is when we think of an elephant, we think of strength and stability. And what's really cool is that elephants actually, whenever they're stepping onto any new territory, any new terrain, okay, they use their trunk to test it. So they kind of like test it out, and then they put one foot down. And so they're always testing, right? And they put one foot down, and then they bring their back foot into the exact same position as their front foot was, because they know that that's safe. Right. So it's really beautiful to see, but it's really their connection and their vibration to the earth that, just that sense of stability that they give us, that is why it's the spirit animal of the root chakra. So really quick, again, I wanted to go through and talk about what does it look like if this chakra is really balanced, and what does it look like if it's imbalanced? So some of the, there's a lot of different ones, but some of the ones, if you have a balanced root chakra, actually, let's start with the imbalance. So if you have an imbalanced root chakra, you're going to notice some things. There's going to be physical things that you might be dealing with. So think about, that where that chakra sits, and things like hemorrhoids and constipation or prostate problems, or a lot of cramping in the legs, or any type of leg issue, right? Our legs are our trunk of the tree. It is what keeps us connected to the earth. So if you're dealing with any of those types of things, remember, everything starts out energetically and then it manifests in the physical. So what have we been avoiding? What have we not been paying attention to? And why has it started to manifest physically in our life? So also, that feeling or that sense of just not being very grounded, like always feeling like you're in your head and just very like flighty or very airy, then there's probably some root chakra types of imbalances there. There is a big sense of insecurity. Again, you're always looking outside of yourself for security and for stability. So you're either looking for that in people, things, careers, whatever that looks like. Fear. We talked about this a little bit already, but fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of your finances, fear and worry and anxiety and depression, like all of these things are root chakra types of that's the root of them. not to be funny, but we don't have this like sense of safety in our life. Okay. And then there is usually a lack of finances. If we have or we just have an imbalance, like I said, we're very attached to our finances. Like there's just this imbalance within our finances. We block abundance from coming into our life because fear blocks abundance. So, or we get our money and then we hoard it because we're afraid and we're fearful that if we let it go, it's never going to come back. Right. So greed is the other side of that. If we're very, very greedy with our money, then there's also a imbalance in this root chakra. If you, some people tend to move around a lot, they become territorial, they're combative, and they really tend to stay in their comfort zone because they have this big fear of the unknown. So those are some of the imbalances. And there's also some, we can go beyond imbalanced and we can go to straight blocked. And that is when somebody has had, like, if they have destructive behavior, like long-term destructive behavior, then that can be an indicator right there. If they always just seem like they're super unsettled, unstable, then they have really, really, really low self-esteem. Like all of these things can kind of lead back to a root chakra block or imbalance. So what does it look like if we're balanced in this chakra? Is a few things. So our material needs are taken care of. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the money in the world that you wish you had, right? But it means that you have enough to get through. You've got enough to continue to live out your purpose, right? We don't become greedy. We have enough to do all the things that we want to do in life. Okay. We feel very stable and secure. There's very few things that rock our boats. So, they tend to move through obstacles pretty darn easily because they trust things are going to work out and that they're going to be provided for if they are really leading from a heart-centered place and not just taking uncalculated risk, right? There's a difference between those. But they have this sense of like everything that happens to them happens for them. Okay, they have less patterns or cycles of behavior. They have this beautiful ability to manifest just about anything that they want in this life because the fear doesn't get in their way. Fear doesn't stop the universe or God or the divine from providing them all the things that they want and desire in life. So there's almost like this 100% alive vibe that these people put out. Like you can just tell that they really feel alive in their life and they're up for just about anything because they feel safe and they feel secure and they don't feel like there's any reason to fear trying something new or doing something different. And so that's a few things. Another one is that they're really connected to their physical body. Now, they're very connected to their physical body. They are not obsessed with their physical body. That is different. Obsession is a attachment. They don't have an attachment to their physical body, but they are really connected to it. They know how to listen to it. They know the wisdom that it perceives. They know it doesn't have to look a certain way for it to be doing what they need to do. They know how to care for it on more levels than just the physical. Okay. And yeah, they just tend to, they really give it their all and everything, even if they're going to fall on their face. They're willing to take risks because they know that it's not going to hurt them. And it is just going to help them, become stronger and feel more stable and all of that. So those are some of the characteristics that come from a very balanced root chakra. So think about that list, right? And think about where, again, you may have some balances and some imbalances. And the goal is to really be able to sit in that more balanced space. And so there might be work to be done here. And that's okay, because trust me, I had a lot of root chakra stuff to work through. So now I want to talk just really briefly about the archetypes. So again, these are kind of like the patterns of behavior between somebody who is off balance compared to somebody who is balanced in their root chakra. So the person that is off balance, that is imbalanced in this root chakra, the archetype of that person is the victim. Okay. So outside circumstances easily knock them around. Someone else is always the cause of every situation. So they tend to blame the world for their woes. If something happens to them, it's never their fault. It is always somebody else's fault. Which leads to life really pushing them around because they refuse to take responsibility for the life that they have created, and that the life that they have created has come from the choices that they have made. And they also tend to bounce around from problem to problem because they just end up stuck in drama, or they give up at the first sight of an obstacle. You guys, this used to be me. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. I used to be so afraid to fail, so afraid to do something wrong that I would run at any obstacle that came up because I just didn't have this sense of trust in myself that I could move through it. Okay. And then they operate at kind of like a numbness to life, because they're just not fully alive. They're not feeling it. They're not connected to their body and the earth and all their physicality and all these beautiful things. They don't feel that connection. So they don't feel fully alive. And so it's easy to blame everybody, right? So then there's the other side of it. There's the flip side. We've got the archetype where we are very balanced in that root chakra, and that's the earth mother archetype. So whether you're a male or female, it doesn't matter, but it's the earth mother. And that is your ability they know how to nourish themselves. We have this sense of, if I don't take care of myself, nobody else is going to. So let's make sure that is something that we're putting in the forefront. And they become this warrior that always has enough of whatever they need. And they trust that if they're running low on something, that it is going to be provided in the right time. It might not show up beforehand, right? But it is going to show up at exactly when you need it. So those are the two archetypes that really come from this chakra. So lastly, I just wanted to leave you with, how do you start to shift this? If you're seeing these and you're like, ooh, check, check, check. Shit, she's talking directly to me, right? It's okay, because we have all, so many of us really, as we go through this series, you're probably going to notice things that pop up in several of them. And some of them are just going to need more work than others. So how can we start to work through this? One, the first thing you have to do is claim responsibility. Claim responsibility for your life. And if you've listened to any of this podcast prior to this, you've probably heard me say this more than once. So start to claim responsibility. Then you have to develop a sense of knowing and security, which is this bringing together the beauty of faith and intuition, right? And again, that sense of security comes from a sense of trust within yourself, combined with a sense of trust in the unseen world, which is still part of you. And that's what's so important to realize here. And then when you look at life, look at it as, you start to see it in life is not happening to you. Life is happening for me. So even though I may not be able to connect the dots right now as to how this is happening, and it might not be my preference that it's happening this way, I am going to trust that it is happening for me. I was at the airport the other day. This man who was so angry about the fact that the door was shut on him 2 seconds before he before he got to the plane. He was so mad. He was taking it out on the woman at the Delta Sky Lounge. And I had to giggle because, again, I don't give this information to judge people. There's zero judgment, but they are teaching tools. They're learning tools to see how this plays out, right? And so what was the first thing? He started to blame. It wasn't his fault that he missed his plane. Okay. Maybe it wasn't, but maybe it was. I don't know. Who knows? But the other side of that is that he couldn't see that maybe that was happening for him, right? Maybe that was actually saving him from some sort of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Who knows? But life is working out for us. And when we start to have faith in that, it really shifts the way we start to look at our life and how stable and secure we feel. And we just don't get knocked around as much because, like, okay, here we are. I trust there's a reason we're stuck in traffic right now. Like, things just become easier. So, if this is you, a lot of times our spirit starts to feel a little broken and a little cracked with loneliness. And so it's a matter of starting to understand your story. Really, that's the next thing, is that how do you start to understand your story? You don't have to like it. Okay. But you do have to understand it, and you have to be able to learn from the stories that you have created and understand how to shift them so that you can really move forward instead of allowing those stories to hold you back or just kind of keep you stuck in the same cycles. Another thing that is really important for balancing this chakra is grounding. It's exactly what it sounds like. Get out into nature, connect more to the ground, to Mother Earth. If you are somebody who gets in their head a lot, make it a point to get outside as often as you possibly can. And if even better would be to take your shoes off and really sink in and feel that ground beneath your feet. Don't do this with distractions. Don't put on a podcast or anything like that. Like, just be with nature. Get yourself immersed into nature. It's really, really, really going to help you. And then the last thing is that avoidance, we can't avoid. We have to stop avoiding. Avoidance is a huge red flag of the root chakra. So when you look in your life, I want you to ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What am I avoiding? One of the things that I've been avoiding lately is going to the dentist, because I haven't been to the dentist in so long. And now I think I'm afraid of what's going to happen when I go to the dentist, but avoidance. So I need to take care of that. Okay. That's my commitment to you. But so avoidance, right? What are you avoiding in your life? And it can be something as simple as that, or it can be something else. I know when Andrew and I really used to struggle with money, we thought avoiding it was the answer. To us, it was always like, just if we avoid it for long enough, maybe it will fix itself. But that actually doesn't work. I'm just going to get that into your head right now. So start to understand why you're avoiding it, and then start to choose different. And then the other questions that I want you to consider and ask yourself is, what are you trying to control in your life? What are the things that keep you up at night? Because control and worry and anxiety are just other forms of fear. So consider those things. And these are just all tools to help you start to bring to the surface what is really the root of what's going on here. And why this is so important, and I spent a good amount of time on this chakra, is because if you're unwilling to do the work around this chakra, it is a mountain that will impact every other aspect of your life, because it's our foundation. It is our foundational aspect that we get to build on. And so we have to have a strong, stable foundation. So I know that this was quite a bit of information, but again, we're just really touching the surface. But if you did feel like I was calling you out directly, I wasn't, but just make sure you connect. Let's connect, because all of these things can be worked through with the appropriate guidance and the appropriate tools to do so. So you can do that through the website, stacygeisel.com. You can shoot me a text at 248-206-3431. We'll get you on the texting list. We'll see how we can help. You can just reach out via DM on Instagram. However you want to connect is totally good with me. So just make sure that you do. You have to be willing to take that first step. Now, next week, we are going to go into the sacral chakra. This one gets really, really juicy. So watch out for that. And until then, just remember that how you show up in the world matters. You are limitless, and the impact that you make is beyond what you can imagine. And the world needs that light more now than ever. So let's go change the world.